Hi there, I'm Lily and I'm losing light as we're doing this. So I'm just gonna get right into it. If you see me in a different outfit, it's because I did this video in multiple parts because I'm about to be blinded by the sun. So let's just roll here. Christine Weston Chandler.
You're the shithead.
Wings of Redemption.
I hate my life.
Daniel Larson.
Uh-oh.
Drake at this point. Ash Trevino, soon probably.
I mean, now I'm in a prison sister-wife relationship.
These are a couple of examples of people who are commonly known on the internet as Lolcows. If you're not sure what that means, you should know that there's a ton of different ways to phrase it, though I prefer Wiki's definition: a person whose eccentric or foolish behavior can be exploited to amuse onlookers. The word is believed to have been coined by users of the website Kiwi Farms. Objectively, this term is dehumanizing and, in my opinion, contributes greatly to the audience's willingness to participate in harassing someone labeled a lolcow. But it's also not that simple. In this video, I'm going to consider 4 different groups of people that I personally have taken note of when following any lolcow scenario. The lolcow themselves, the observant audience, the vocal audience, and the interactive audience. It's important for me to also state that I'm not assigning blame to any of the groups when it comes to the downfall of any person. I'm just hoping to highlight some trends I've seen when a new person considered to be a lolcow is introduced to the internet. Oops, I dropped my phone. For now, I will just jump into how a lolcow is formed, and if you want to die, you can take a shot every time I say lolcow, but I wouldn't recommend it. Chapter 1. Beginning stages of a lolcow. Each person that has been branded a lolcow is drastically different, sure. But are they really? They come up the same way, as presumed good faith users of the internet looking to get in on the idealistic dream of being watched and beloved by the masses. It's nothing new. Everyone has had, at some point, their own dreams of fame or glory of some kind. So where does everything go so terribly wrong for these specific people? Well, I'll give you a step-by-step list on how I think you can become a lolcow, though again, would not recommend. Step 1. Find a niche corner of the internet. Post regularly. The weirder the content, the better. Do you have an obvious developmental disorder? Even better! You're more likely to hyper-focus on the content you're making, and more importantly, the criticisms of an internet audience, which you'll get more of because, again, developmental disorder. Step 1.5, build a following. It doesn't initially have to be a following of hate watchers. Before Boogie and Wings of Redemption were coined lolcows, they had real fans. Step 2, engage with your audience, especially with those that hate you. The more you respond, the more they'll poke at you, and eventually they'll stop poking and start stabbing. Step 2.25, cue an outburst. The angrier, the better. Your audience will point and laugh and do whatever they can to get it to happen again, which it will, because you need the money and they want to laugh. Step 2.5. Sorry, look, okay, an aside real quick. I made this list and edited it like 7 times, so that's why the steps are weird. Leave me alone. Step 2.5. Become financially and mentally dependent on your internet career. The attention is addicting. Could you leave this job for another more stable one with a less emotionally turbulent everything to it? Probably. But you'd be a fool to let go of one of the most coveted jobs in the world, right? Step 3. Do something terrible. The internet will find out, and it'll skyrocket your career, just not in the way you wanted. If you had a devoted following, it'll start to taper off. Step 3.5. Either don't apologize at all, or make a really shitty apology that avoids any accountability. Lose followers as a result. Step 4. Don't bother trying to leave this job. You're addicted to the money, the attention, the validation, and even the hate comments at this point. You could leave the internet and really try to get a job, but you won't, because that's what makes you a lolcow. Step 5. Repeat. I also feel it's important to mention that the majority, I'd argue, of lolcow viewers don't actually interact directly with the lolcow. Sure, you have sadists and haters and trolls, but you also have everyone else. So what is everyone else doing? Chapter 2. Why we watch. This section is about what I've labeled as the observant audience. Why is this? Well, let's start with what reels you in. Morbid curiosity. It's the reason we rubberneck to look at car crashes. It's so common that there are multiple sayings about it, i.e., it's like a train wreck, but I can't look away. What's really fascinating about morbid curiosity is, despite how it seems from the outside, it's almost a stepping off point for empathy. Almost. Psychiatrist Gail Saltz, when talking about the way we look at tragedies, specifically when discussing how we are tempted to look deeper into them, looking up photos of victims, crash sites, etc., explains, it makes us feel better to say we can't look away. But really, it's that we don't want to look away. It's normal, sadomasochistic urges and fantasies that everyone has a certain degree of. The desire to think about or imagine hurting or being hurt, combined with normal exhibitionist and voyeuristic feelings. It's no different than the Romans and gladiators and feeding them to the lions and everyone watching in the Colosseum. The empathy part comes in when you consider why you find it difficult to look away. Saltz continues, saying, "The bad feeling, of course, is the identification with these lives. You can't help but imagine if it were you or your mother or brother. That's normal too, and that it makes you feel sad. But it's sort of like the enjoyment for some people of seeing a horror movie. It's the thrill of the risk. People like to be terrorized in movies, but they are sitting there in a movie theater, so it's not really happening to them." Now, none of this is to say that we benefit as people by keeping our eyes on the metaphorical train wrecks that are lolcows. In fact, it poses a bit of a risk that you might become, in a sense, addicted to the crash. As Saltz mentions in her final notes about this effect, it's not particularly good for anyone. You aren't gaining any more knowledge. It's good to be informed so that you may make different choices, so that you know what's going on in the world. But neither is served by watching hours of the same story, and many people do. It feeds into the compulsion to keep finding out, to keep looking, and to keep being the voyeur, even though you are safe in your living room. While Saltz was referring to the overconsumption of news and the addiction to being aware of every global tragedy, her point overlaps significantly with the viewing of lolcows. We become addicted to their stories, their claims to fame, each mistake they make, each word that comes out of their mouth. We dig for more. We yearn for more. Next is pathos. Pathos is a combination of the word hate and pathos, or pathos, or whatever you want to call it. It was coined by journalist Alex Hurd in his 1987 article, Beyond the Hate, the Giddy Thrill of Pathos. He defined it as a pleasurable sense of loathing, or a loathing sense of pleasure, aroused by a certain schlocky, schmaltzy, or just plain bad show business personality. Since then, it's trimmed down a bit, and is considered to be general feelings of pleasure derived from hating someone or something. Ironically, both definitions work for our purposes. Pathos could be boiled down to a fancy, made-up word for hate-watching, but it's layered hate-watching. It's hate-watching, cringing, and receiving pleasure from both. Hurd suggests this phenomenon is pleasurable to us because pathos tells the human animal that it's not just okay to be ordinary, faceless, and not working in the business of show, it is superior. I really want to highlight the word superior in that sentence. In my opinion, this is the true core of pathos, a feeling of superiority. It's pleasurable to watch someone fail insurmountably for the world to see because it makes our own perceived failures seem minuscule in comparison. Sure, this might not be the most noble of reasons to pay attention to someone online, but what's the harm in witnessing a train wreck from your only slightly busted car? I'm not hating here. I watch commentary videos about the downfall of people online all the time. Hell, the entire tabloid industry thrives on an audience eating that up. Did a celebrity gain a ton of weight? Did someone cheat on someone else? Did a Discord mod get outed as a pedophile? Yes, yes, and absolutely yes. And we feel better for it. The world keeps turning. So how do things spiral so quickly from here? Well, when it comes to lolcows specifically, the audience feels free to judge, cringe, hate watch, etc. Why is that? A common reason is that we believe this person deserves it. Were they accused of something horrible? Did they do that thing? Well, someone has to hold them accountable. Are they responding to every troll under the sun? Well, they should know better, shouldn't they? What's really fascinating here is the internet's general sense of what is fair and unfair. Is it fair to get someone fired from their job because they preyed on kids online? Perhaps. Who are we to say? I'm gonna pause here because I'm slowly turning into a ghost and I have to go for a walk. But I'll be right back for chapter 3, I swear. All right, everyone, I'm back. It's a different day. I'm in a different outfit. I've had to record this specific chapter so many times. There's so many big words in it. You better listen up because this is causing some serious internal turmoil. Chapter 3, my meatiest chapter and by far the most scientific. The importance of audience participation. Fuck me, I can't even say that right. Whether lolcows realize it or not, their jobs depend almost entirely on audience participation, like a shitty magic show. For my next trick, I will appear so unlikable or strange that parts of the internet will gather in shady corners to throw rotten fruit at me. Now don't get me wrong, this isn't a defense of lolcows. I have my own qualms with many of them, usually regarding their treatment of women or other people in general, but I think it would be a mistake not to acknowledge the impact that a hateful and malicious audience can have on someone. In order for a lolcow to reach this status, it's imperative that they have a good bit of people vocally hate-watching. So this includes comments and criticisms that they can respond to, usually in an extreme manner, one which only encourages further audience participation. Consider one of my steps in the very first chapter where I said cue an outburst. A malicious community is a fairly easy community to foster, thanks to the online disinhibition effect, which refers to the way people are more likely to act out online. There are 6 factors that contribute to the effect as a whole. These include, let me take a breath here, dissociative anonymity, invisibility, asynchronicity, solipsistic introjection, dissociative imagination, and minimization of authority. I will be omitting the minimization of authority point as it doesn't relate to Lolcows circles as much as the other 5 factors, but it is fascinating. So I definitely encourage you to read the whole article that I linked below about the online disinhibition effect. Let's break this down, starting with dissociative This is going to be rough. Dissociative anonymity. Whew. This is probably the most well-known reason as to why people are bolder online. They're essentially faceless. You can be whoever you want to be on the internet, and as long as you haven't angered an entire community of people, nobody is going to care enough to figure out your real identity. But that's not all. John Suler, author of the online disinhibition effect, points out something interesting when referring to anonymous profiles. They don't have to own their behavior by acknowledging it within the full context of an integrated online-offline identity. The online self becomes a compartmentalized self. In the case of expressed hostilities or other deviant actions, the person can avert responsibility for those behaviors, almost as if superego restrictions and moral cognitive processes have been temporarily suspended from the online psyche. Basically, you're free to say whatever you want. Not only because it won't be traced back to you, but also because you subconsciously avoid responsibility for what you're saying via dissociation and compartmentalization in your brain. The concept of invisibility is very straightforward. We cannot see the direct reaction everyone has to our comment, though that's not always the case when it comes to lolcows. We feel emboldened to say whatever we want because we don't feel the shame of other people looking at us weird. Suler states that seeing a frown, a shaking head, a sigh, a bored expression, and many other subtle and not so subtle signs of disapproval or indifference can inhibit what people are willing to express. The internet removes that from our interactions with others, especially when you're in an echo chamber where everybody hates this person that you're hating on. Less people are going to judge you for having the popular opinion. As for asynchronicity, conversations online don't flow like they do in real life. But why does that matter? Suler highlights that some people may even experience asynchronous communication as running away after posting a message that is personal, emotional, or ding ding ding, hostile. It feels safe putting it out there where it can be left behind. It just increases the disconnect and dissociation from conversations online that already exists. Moving on, the most fascinating factors to me are solipsistic introjection and dissociative imagination. They're also the ones that I cannot say, so I would really appreciate it if you gave me a pat on the back for getting that out. Anyway, these are both very present effects in lolcow communities. I believe that solipsistic introjection plays a major part in how lolcow's detractors interact with one another. What does that mean? Well, Suler, champion of the pen at this point, props to that guy, phrases it like this: absent face-to-face cues combined with text communication can alter self-boundaries. People may feel that their mind has merged with the mind of the online companion. Reading another person's message may be experienced as a voice within one's head, as if that person's psychological presence and influence have been assimilated or introjected into one's psyche. Again, this effect is only emphasized by echo chambers, such as the hate-filled echo chamber that is Kiwi Farms, or 4chan, or even comment sections of a commonly hated person/lolcow. We tend to pick up the most popular opinions that are voiced, usually loudly, around us. In a hate-based forum, of course that opinion is, well, hateful. We then feel emboldened to spread that opinion to others because we trust our online friends and view their opinions as our own, and our own opinions as abject truth. Finally, we have dissociative imagination. This relates pretty heavily to solipsistic introjection because it considers the people we interact with online as characters. Suler, my king, puts it like this: consciously or unconsciously, people may feel that the imaginary characters they created exist in a different space, that one's online persona, along with the online others, live in a make-believe dimension, separate and apart from the demands and responsibilities of the real world. They split or dissociate online fiction from offline fact. Once they turn off the computer and return to their daily routine, they believe they can leave behind that game and their game identity. They relinquish their responsibility for what happens in a make-believe play world that has nothing to do with reality. Thus, there is a significantly reduced sense of guilt or shame when commenters berate a lolcow. They also might not realize that what they do actually really impacts this person. This vocal viewer group, in my opinion, is often fueled not only by these dissociative qualities, but also the notion that the lolcow deserves some kind of punishment, that they need someone to snap them back into reality, that they aren't feeling bad enough for that thing they did that they never took accountability for. Even when they did do something wrong and apologized, it wasn't enough. Vocal commenters clamp their jaws down on the sleeve of the lolcow's crimes against humanity and do not let go. In all honesty, this is the least surprising group. Humanity has always had a boner for justice, specifically vigilante justice. Instant karma is an internet-wide phenomenon. It's satisfying to watch someone get what we think they deserve. We hope they'll feel a sting when they do something horrible and can write it off on our conscience as hoping they'll learn from their mistakes. The problem when this happens with lolcows is that they typically do not learn. Sure, it may increase their self-loathing, but did they really learn from that commenter calling them the F-slur? But then again, does it matter? We aren't responsible for what they learn from their mistakes, if they ever do. Commenting rudely on a lolcow's social media is really, at the heart of it, punishment for our own gain. We feel something has been righted now that they've been adequately punished in our heads. The problem is, a lot of times in a lolcow scenario, the bar is constantly being moved for what is considered adequate punishment for an error. This brings me to Chapter 4, the interactive audience, aka the scariest part of being a lolcow. I lost the footage for this bit, so this is me re-recording it many days later. So whatever footage is playing is footage I just chose to overlay. The interactive audience. I'm not just referring to typical internet interactions, mean comments, jokes at the lolcow's expense, etc. I'm talking about doxing. I'm talking about swatting, emailing someone, pretending to offer them a job, texting them and pretending you're a romantically interested girl so that they'll send you photos of their genitalia, convincing them that their reality isn't real and therefore inspiring a psychological break, having one-on-one interactions with the lolcow as a way to milk them for laughs, convincing them to stick something up their ass on camera, etc. This group is probably the one that I have the hardest time understanding. Sure, some of the hostility and malice can be chalked up to a combination of mob mentality, solipsistic introjection, and of course attention. It's no secret that there are a couple of well-known active trolls that gain a minuscule bit of infamy from messing with lolcows. But I think another thing that is glossed over in the lolcow troll interactions is the idea of power. If you're someone probably on the younger side, desperate for power and a little devoid of empathy and a frontal lobe, interacting with and directly manipulating a lolcow is a great way to regain control in your own mind. You watch how your actions have direct consequences on somebody, probably because they're filming or live streaming said consequences as they happen in real time, and because that person is so universally hated, your actions, no matter how malicious or cruel, may even be praised. You are impacting someone's actions you probably knew would happen, given the track record of each lolcow and the repetition of their responses. For example, let's say I'm an avid watcher of Christine Chandler's. I know based on her past responses to mean comments that calling her Chris Chan will make her flip her shit. I want to see that? I do it. I know that convincing her to send me her beloved medallion and cutting it up will make her sob and wail uncontrollably on the internet. I want to see that? I do it. I know that Wings of Redemption will absolutely lose it if somebody stream snipes him. I want to see him lose it? I stream snipe him. What's not considered in these situations, obviously, is the lasting effect this will have on the person being harassed, as well as the people around them. A lifetime of being shat on online is going to destroy someone's self-esteem. Whether we think they deserve it or not is not the point. This is an objective truth. We know this because there are hundreds of studies on the negative effects of cyberbullying. Side note, cyberbullying as a word is unhelpful. Nobody takes that seriously. It does not feel right to call being swatted, called slurs, and having your life directly impacted by a malicious power as cyberbullying. We need a better word. We also need more studies about the effects that online harassment has on adults. There are so many studies about the effects of online hate when it pertains to teenagers, which is important, but I think there's also a ton that could be studied in regards to lolcows and other adults that have become victims of targeted harassment, not just typical "you're fat" comments you'd see in a high schooler's Instagram comment section. If you step back for a moment and take a look at a list of lolcows, you can easily see that most of them are suffering as a result of their botched online careers. They'll usually shift the blame for their feelings of inadequacy to the trolls. And don't get me wrong, the interactive audience group, the one I'm talking about right now, the one I understand the least, and even the verbal group have a lot to answer for. They have a lot of introspection to do, but so do the targets of this harassment. This brings me to my last chapter. Chapter 5, The Beginnings of a Lolcow. Who's next? With all of this context in mind, I would like to shift the focus a little bit onto someone who actually inspired this video, because I've watched her rise to fame and then watched her subsequent downfall. I'm talking, of course, about Ash Trevino.
I never abused my daughter, you guys. What I said was, I would get mad at her, yes. And I pulled her hair, yes. But I never abused her.
What?
Are y'all jealous because I'm in the same room as him or what?
If you're into the commentary side of YouTube, you know who she is. For those who don't, I'll give you a very condensed rundown. Ash is a woman who rose to TikTok fame by live streaming 24/7 and bragging about her escapades as a, quote, inmate hopper. Someone who gets romantically involved almost exclusively with people who have been convicted of some kind of crime.
You're my 30th inmate. Did I not tell you that? You really are.
Since her rise to online fame, a lot more has happened with her and her audience to the point where I believe she is towing the line of a lolcow. She's done all the steps that I've listed in the first part of this video, and because she kind of sucks, she's fostered an audience that just does not like her. Now, Ash is not a great person. In fact, I'd argue she's pretty horrible. I don't have an issue with people laughing at her, to be honest. She's had CPS called on her a bunch of times. Rightly so. I mean, her kids don't have beds, and she neglects them in favor of her livestream audience. She's also just really gross, and refers to people in prison as though they are kind of an object. She never calls them anything but inmates. It's really icky.
I swear, I've been with 30 inmates.
But the issue here that I want to focus on is that she has children. We've seen lolcows be destroyed by their addiction to having an online presence before, but I've never seen someone so callously put their children in danger. Ash is at the point in her career where people are directly messing with her, calling her and pretending to be Netflix execs, offering her a show.
Hey Ash, we have some exciting news for you. We just booked you a show with Netflix.
Oh my god!
Meeting her on TikTok and then meeting her in real life, flirting with her, and then having sexual relations with her as a joke.
I seen his pee and you see mine.
That guy was 19, by the way, so there's like a million things wrong with that entire situation. But my point is, if it hasn't happened, someone is gonna swat her while her kids are there, and that is gonna traumatize them. That's just one of the many things that could happen if she keeps fostering a malicious audience. Ash is gonna continue to do insane things for attention online, and her kids are gonna see that. They're going to suffer for that. Their mother is the self-proclaimed inmate hopper. I cannot imagine how that feels. On top of that, she's admitted to physically abusing her kid. Ash Trevino is a walking nightmare who is basically ensuring that once her kids turn 18, they will never speak to her again, and also that they'll be traumatized before they reach 18, if they're not already. This is where I feel like we, as the audience, need to really consider who our actions are hurting. Because the day after you call her cell phone, swat her, get her to flash you on live, she's gonna move on. Ash doesn't care, we've seen that. But that will follow her kids everywhere they go, even if they do end up going no contact with their mother. Consider the amount of stress the whole Christine Chandler saga put on Christine's parents.
If the health department of Greene County sees those videos that you put on the damn internet, they could condemn our house and we would have to move out of it.
Or consider maybe all of the romantic partners of Lolcows who have existed before, who have been seriously hurt by this entire online fiasco that is like having a lolcow close to you. Consider how all of these scenarios end. You know, if you didn't know about the Christine Chandler situation, her father died, leaving her mother alone in her care, where she was sexually abused by her own, at this point, mentally distraught child. These are the real consequences of pushing someone to their absolute limits. The people around them get hurt. Now, Ash Trevino is obviously at fault for putting her kids in this scenario. She needs to get offline or change something about the way she interacts online. Otherwise, her kids are not only going to be socially isolated, which they already are, but also in serious danger. But again, they're in danger of being directly messed with by a malicious audience. It takes two to tango. As an audience, we have to consider that our actions may not just hurt Ash, they could hurt her children as well. Basically, rein it in, people, unless you want to be responsible for traumatizing two teenage girls. That's where I'm going to stop this video, because I feel like that's as good a place to stop as any. Don't hurt teenagers. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. To Ash Trevino, I hope you get offline. To Ash Trevino's children, good luck, soldiers. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.